Here is the thing about watering houseplants. Almost everything you have been taught is either wrong or dangerously oversimplified. And the worst part? The mistakes that kill plants the fastest are the ones that look exactly like good care. Today we are going through every single watering mistake: the schedule trap, the depth problem, the pot problem, the seasonal shift, the water quality issue, the misting myth, and finally, the one mistake that disguises itself as love right up until the plant is beyond saving. Let's start with the most common one. You pick a day, Sunday maybe. You water all your plants. Every week, same day, same routine. It feels responsible. It feels organized. But here is what is actually happening. Your plant's water needs are not fixed. They shift constantly based on light, temperature, season, and whether the plant is actively growing or resting. A pothos sitting near a bright window in July might need water every 10 days. That same pothos, same pot, same spot. In January, it might go 3 to 4 weeks without needing a single drop. The metabolism has slowed, the days are shorter, there is less light fueling photosynthesis, and the soil holds moisture much longer because nothing is using it up. Water that plant on a weekly schedule through winter and the soil stays wet. The roots sit in moisture they cannot process. Oxygen vanishes from the soil, and root rot starts quietly beneath the surface. So what do? Instead? You stop following a calendar and start following the soil. Before you water anything, push your finger about 2 to 3 centimeters into the soil, not the surface. The surface dries out in a day or two no matter what. You need to feel what is happening deeper. If it feels damp at all, walk away. Come back in 3 days and check again. For drought-tolerant plants like succulents, snake plants, zyd plants, and cacti, wait until the soil is bone dry all the way to the bottom before you add water. For moisture-loving plants like ferns, calathea, and peace lilies, water when the top half has dried out. The threshold changes by species, but the principle never does. Let the soil guide you, not your calendar. Now here is a mistake most people have no idea they are making, because from the outside the plant looks watered. When you pour water quickly over dry soil, or just add a small amount, the water either runs off the surface or sits in the top centimeter without going any deeper. The root zone, which sits in the lower 2/3 of the pot, stays completely dry. So you end up with a plant that is overwatered at the surface, wet enough to attract fungus gnats and mold, and simultaneously underwatered at the roots where no moisture is actually reaching. Both problems from the same routine. There is a dead giveaway for this. You water the plant and water immediately appears at the drainage hole, but when you push a finger into the soil 2 centimeters down, it is still dry. The water has found channels through compacted soil instead of actually soaking in. The fix is to slow down. Pour water gradually around the entire surface, giving the soil time to absorb it. Keep going until water flows steadily from the drainage hole. That tells you moisture has reached the full root zone. Or try bottom watering. Set the pot in a tray of water for 20 to 30 minutes. The soil pulls moisture upward through capillary action, absorbing evenly from the bottom. This works especially well for pots where the soil has become hydrophobic, meaning it has dried out so thoroughly that it actually repels water instead of absorbing it. 1 or 2 sessions of bottom watering usually fixes this completely. Let's talk about pots, because the container you choose affects your watering results more than almost anything else. 2 identical plants, same soil, same watering, one in the right pot and one in the wrong pot, will end up in completely different condition. The first pot problem is size. When a pot is too large, it holds far more soil than the roots can use. The roots pull water from their immediate area, but all that excess soil around them stays wet for weeks. Every week it stays wet is another week of oxygen deprivation for any roots growing into that zone. Oversized pots are one of the most reliable paths to root rot in a plant that seems to be watered perfectly. When you repot, go up only one size. The roots should fill most of the pot. A slightly snug fit is far healthier than a plant sitting in a sea of unused wet soil. The second pot problem is drainage. A pot without a drainage hole is not really a pot. It is a bucket. Water collects at the bottom with nowhere to go. Eventually, the lower root zone sits permanently waterlogged no matter how careful you are from the top. Every pot needs a drainage hole. If you love a decorative pot that does not have one, use a nursery pot inside it. Water the plant, let it drain fully, then set it back in the outer pot. Just never let it sit in standing water. The third factor is material. Terracotta is porous. Moisture evaporates through the walls, the soil dries faster, and roots can access oxygen through the pot itself. Plastic and sealed ceramic hold moisture significantly longer. For plants that need to dry out between waterings, terracotta is the safest bet. For moisture-loving species, sealed pots work fine. The mistake is putting a drought-tolerant plant in a sealed pot where the soil stays wet far too long. Now let's talk about something that catches a lot of people off guard. Winter. Most houseplants slow down dramatically once the days get shorter. Some go fully dormant. Their metabolism drops, they stop pushing new growth, and their water needs fall by half or more. A plant that needed watering every 10 days in summer might only need it once every 4 to 6 weeks in winter. The soil dries more slowly because there is less light-driving evaporation and less active growth-consuming water. Watering on the same schedule year-round is one of the top causes of winter plant death. The plant enters its low-energy state, needs almost nothing, and keeps getting the same volume of water it got in July. The soil stays perpetually wet. Root rot follows. Succulents, cacti, snake plants, and Z plants are the most vulnerable here. These should get almost no water in winter, especially if your home drops below around 15 degrees. Tropical plants like monstera and pothos still need some water in winter, just much less. The soil test becomes even more critical between October and March. If there is any moisture at all when you check, wait another week. In winter, leaning toward underwatering is almost always the safer call. Here is one most people never think about: the water itself. Tap water in most cities contains chlorine and fluoride. Chlorine kills bacteria. Fluoride supports dental health. Both are fine for humans. But certain plants, especially those from tropical environments where rain is naturally soft and mineral-free, accumulate fluoride in their leaf tissue over time. It shows up as brown, crispy tips that start at the edges of older leaves and slowly creep inward. The plants most sensitive to this are peace lilies, calathea, spider plants, dracaena, and most palms. Orchids are highly sensitive too. Snake plants and pothos handle it reasonably well. The easiest fix for chlorine is leaving tap water in an open container overnight. Chlorine is a volatile gas and off-gases within 12 to 24 hours. Fluoride does not dissipate that way. For fluoride-sensitive plants, rainwater or filtered water is the better long-term option, and water temperature matters more than you might expect. Cold water straight from the tap onto tropical roots causes a brief but real shock. The root cells contract. Over time, repeated cold water stress shows up as sluggish growth and increased vulnerability to disease. Room temperature water is a simple upgrade that costs nothing. Alright, now for one of the most persistent myths in houseplant core: misting. You have probably heard it 100 times. Spray your plants to raise the humidity. It sounds right. It feels productive. The leaves glisten and everything looks lush. But if you place a hygrometer next to a freshly misted plant, the humidity spike lasts less than 10 minutes before dropping right back to whatever it was before. The water evaporates almost immediately and leaves the foliage damp. Damp leaves are not harmless. They invite fungal and bacterial problems, especially powdery mildew, leaf spot, and botrytis. If your plants genuinely need higher humidity, calathea, ferns, orchids, alocasia, there are 3 approaches that actually deliver results. A pebble tray filled with water beneath the pot raises local humidity through slow, steady evaporation without wetting the leaves. Grouping plants together creates a small microclimate of higher humidity as each plant transpires. And a small humidifier nearby maintains consistent moisture in the air without any disease risk. Misting does have one real use though: cleaning. A light mist followed by a wipe with a soft cloth removes dust that blocks light from reaching the leaf surface. That is plant hygiene, not humidity care. Now for the most dangerous mistake, and the reason I asked you to stay until the end. When a plant is stressed, after repotting, after being moved to a new spot, after a temperature shock, after arriving from the store, its root system is not operating normally. It cannot absorb and move water the way it usually does. In that state, generous watering does not help recovery. It accelerates the damage. After repotting, roots that were disturbed need 1 to 2 weeks to heal before heavy watering. Give it a light watering to settle the soil, then hold back. That instinct to drench a freshly repotted plant to help it settle is one of the most common post-repotting mistakes. A newly purchased plant has been living in nursery conditions, high humidity, consistent watering, ideal temperatures, and it needs time to adjust to your home. During that transition, which can take 2 to 4 weeks, the plant might drop leaves, droop, or just look generally unhappy. Most people respond by watering more. The right response is to water less and give it time. For any stressed plant, check the soil, and unless it is completely dry, wait. A stressed plant with compromised roots sitting in wet soil is in serious trouble. A stressed plant with dry soil can recover. And finally, your plant is already telling you what is going on if you know how to read it. Wilting with dry soil means it is thirsty. Water thoroughly and it should bounce back within a few hours. Wilting with wet soil is root failure, not thirst. Adding more water will make it worse. Unpot it and inspect the roots. Yellow leaves throughout the plant with consistently wet soil points to overwatering. The roots are suffocating. Pull back on watering and check for rot. Yellow leaves only on the lower portion with normal soil conditions is just natural shedding. The plant is dropping its oldest leaves and there is nothing to fix. Brown crispy tips are not about watering volume. That is low humidity, fluoride in the water, or dry air from heating. Change the water source, not the frequency. Green leaves dropping suddenly signals environmental stress from being moved, repotted, or exposed to a temperature swing. Ease up on watering and give the plant time to adjust. A soft, mushy stem near the soil line is stem rot from overwatering. Cut back to healthy tissue, let the cut dry, repot in fresh, dry mix, and reduce watering significantly going forward. If your plant is showing any of these symptoms and you're not sure what is going on, drop a description in the comments. I go through everyone and I will help you work out what is happening. And if this changed the way you think about watering, subscribe. Every week we cover a new plant topic just like this, and the library keeps growing.